다 그신 건조 당아서 심지에 담지 코와 동안에 타고 오래 안에 되게 땡기 되어와야 돼. 토고 오래지래. 지사다 대화 동안에 타고 봐자 누가 영역이 유리 조어데 가르치고 그러시네. 아주 녀모발된 리고레스. 녀모베 나네자 안에 다시 말이 봐야 되레스. 지사 다시 말이 봐지기 군에랑 얘는 디왕게 아주 그 되자기 control기 안 디왕게다 샤라 네바지비게 sem장 소주야 당 안에 지게 안 샤라 네비게 내가 먹고 제연도 되네 레사사를 되네 레사 되네 레디왕게 다 코발이야 개발렌지 안에 동아 봐도 몇 용가 차야지 안두스에스 제자당 아주 동아를 dro고 봐자 동아 유유 안에 레다 녀모 봐야지 방고래 세지 어디 대자들 레다 녀모 봐야지 안에 가네스 방고래 람나 다지 녀모 배자와 다시 말이 봐야지 다시 말이 봐방와라 다음에 봐 토픽이 안에 동반 유튜브에 쉐랍 공고래스 지사 동반 유튜브에 쉐랍 마고 바이나 코웨자와 다시니 메바스 두고 말해스 지사 동반 유튜브에 쉐랍 공고래스지 안데네 안티 그생이 디고마 ngazu 티슈로와
Good morning. Previously, we've been looking at how all sentient beings are the same as ourselves in wanting to be freed from suffering and pain and misery in its entirety, and we long for happiness. And the happiness in particular that we long for is a stable happiness, a happiness that isn't interrupted by even the slightest of displeasures. And in order to be able to achieve a state of lasting happiness, one needs to identify what it is that is keeping us bound in the realms of suffering. And that is our afflictions. Because it's due to the presence of our afflictions that we create the contaminated karma that keeps us taking uncontrolled rebirth in samsara and encountering problems and difficulties and not experiencing any real peace, any lasting, stable peace. And these afflictive minds have as at their root the single affliction, which is the ignorance of self-grasping. And it's from this ignorance that grasps at the self as existing in a way that it does not, that all our afflictions come, all our needs that we feel have to be fulfilled, and everything that we push away from us, thinking that we have to protect the self. And from this, we engage in harmful activities, whether physical or verbal, as well as keeping ourselves so busy trying to fulfill all our desires. So, if the root cause then is this ignorance of self-grasping, it is that has to be eliminated in order for freedom to be attained. And in order to eliminate ignorance, one has to develop its opposing mind, wisdom. And in order to eliminate the specific ignorance, that is the ignorance of self-grasping, its specific opposing mind needs to be cultivated. And that is the wisdom realizing emptiness. Without this realization, freedom cannot be achieved. With it, lasting, stable happiness of nirvana will be achieved.
최근에 지메네야 현실의 되는 주범마도 마되바시 안 강라에 마되바 코로랑 경원이 줍대해서 기내요 말해지래. 지난 최근에 지난 코로랑 게랑신기 내루디 가르스네 현실의 되는 주범마도 강라에 마되바 랑원이 마주바디 최근에 지네 디 내루디 뭐디 내루디 데 차고래서. 지난 아랑 쪽에 가르스던 거라스네 당 쪽에 나세디 강라에 마되바 랑은 원에 주바 진디고래 랑은 원에 주바 진고래 지산 델레 덴진 마리 바시고래 지산디 디기 최간에 지나랑 저게 나세야디 강라마 랑은 원에 주바 진요도 진바디게 다지산 나세야디 최기 의 니수 니룩디 하고 그거 말해 자 하모와서 델레 디묵세와 디묵 덴진세와 디묵라다 하모고 유경 원니수 니수 원에디 진메자 하모고와지 나domdom 제제 되디겐디 로텔 디묵세로 지산 데니게 저기 데니기 다진 덴진 마리파티 디묵세 그래. 시장 안 하기래 디묵티 그래서. 지금 데니기 디묵세 나domdom 제되디 아주 강반 너공지여바나 가야 토하여 말어. 너공세 그래. 지금 디 로지 빠샤바나 디 차상 너후 매바 차제 무인이수 강변나라 가리면 차상 통으로 디나시 만족에 다음에 봐도 제바치제电这个 남자 삼다제 최 나사디 라신 템바 마주바도 또 봐이나 제가 되니 디무기마 세주고래 시선 전면나시래 시선 아주 유기 최기 내로 지마시 마통외게 디무디 매바 차제 한 최기 내로데 또 용으래 내로디 도고래 시선 동료도 별로 되라 한 디무 가서 전면시 그래서 디무 전면세야게 다제 마리파 매바 소야기 된 전면나시 면나신디다 동방이 또 배셔야 되래서 그래.
In reality, all phenomena are dependent arisings. Everything that exists is a dependent arising, whether it's phenomena of the outer world, the various types of form, or our inner world, such as our inner qualities. These are all dependent arisings. This is how phenomena exist in reality. However, due to the strength of our ignorance, this is not something that we actually realize. Rather, we believe that phenomena exist in the way that they appear to us, which is that they appear to be truly existent, as if they are independent, not influenced by anything at all, self-existent. This is how phenomena naturally appear to us. Again, whether it's phenomena in the external world or inner qualities. These all appear as if they are self-existent when they are actually dependently arisen, dependent on other. So this consciousness is a consciousness of ignorance that doesn't realize how phenomena exist in reality. And this ignorance, this not knowing, is likened to darkness, where we are lost in this darkness of ignorance, unable to see reality. And that is the position that all ordinary beings find ourselves in since beginningless time, dwelling in the darkness of ignorance, unable to see reality. And to dispel this ignorance, this darkness of ignorance, one needs a lamp that illuminates the darkness, and that illuminating lamp is wisdom, and in particular the wisdom that is investigating how the self exists, how all phenomena exists. This wisdom illuminates the darkness of ignorance, and this is what one needs to cultivate, the wisdom realizing emptiness.
chigi nilu mashinbi dimu munbadi seyagi chotu gyubadi donbanyi dubi sherari. Tizanda donbanyi doya la nga zo karit samdangore, tenjige samdangore che, tenjige samdada nga zo tenje rakba digi, tadu ushini dangbo samdada tenje rakba samdangarwa. Tizanda tenje ko bene nyugu nga zo tongshuzu gyubigi da chigi 지신로다 매도 가래이네 차상 유단 견라드나 사번 당보 계유 사번치를 뛰고도 사번치를 뛰어 맞아 안델이야 견 추단 류단 죄랑 차상 아니 고도 스티메나 아니 지기도 민스 텔라티네 기도 세베다가 저기 라바라바지 하고도 버려 뒤나시 삼다도 신이네 저기 소소가 세대 소소이네다 지 유단 견 현실을 뛰는 주부거래 지자다 디네 자다 가서 롤이야 낭도 간에 낭도 세베디제바 지고 그래 지자다 가서 소소도 삼다지 소소기 삼나래 가서 라면도 롤이야 간에 샤고도 디 삼나다 다도 사제바체도 롤이 샤도 간에 하고 그랬으나 나세데 풍부 대단 저와균이 메디칸 강라야마도 그런 원이 주바데 나도 그래 난 거래 니 나와디 아주 당부 하고 가지고 그래 디하고네 안디 나와 나신디다 로라 강라마도 랑고네 나와 나신디다 디 가와도 스타디 풍번안에 수기 풍번안에 가와도 세체바체야다 데네 낭 초유 풍번다 안에 두시 풍번 남바시 풍번 디나레 가르가르도 두진 마제진 제바제바이나 나는 가sam찔이야 근데 두스진네 안에 강라야 징아 세디 파르파 채실을 뛰는 주바지다 류파 다바 점지마도 강라야 마되바 류파 다바 마인바 랑고니 줍되바디 자기니 매바레 민두 선비게 되네게 삼노디 하고야게 안 단달랑 아주 된지게 두스진의 제바체 오레스 되니 제바 마제바이나 하고야 가보자고와 어디니기 제고래 세시 디지사 되네기 베주에 제냐는 냠난 제고래 사실 그 생긴데 쉬루와
The sequence here is we understand the pivotal role the afflictions play in keeping us bound in suffering, that it's these afflicted minds that are our true enemies, that do cause us all unwanted pain and misery, and they have at their root the ignorance, grasping at phenomena as existing in a way that they do not, the ignorance of true grasping. And this is the state of darkness that we've been dwelling in since beginningless time, is what ensures we remain afflicted and bound in the suffering realms of samsara. And therefore, we desperately need to cultivate the illuminating lamp of the wisdom that understands reality in the way that it exists. And in order to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, the most skillful technique for us is to reflect on dependent arising. And as we come to understand that phenomena do not exist independently, but rather dependently, the hold that this ignorance has on us starts to loosen in direct relationship to the blossoming of wisdom within us. To understand dependent arising, we start by reflecting on a coarse level, and then as we gain familiarity with it, we naturally progress to subtler understandings. The coarsest understanding is to see that all phenomena arise in dependence on causes and conditions. All phenomena that change momentarily arise in dependence on causes and conditions. For example, the plants in your garden. We know a seed needs to be planted in nutritious soil, have sufficient heat and water, and then it will grow. But in order for the plant to grow, there has to be the seed and the ripening conditions. So we can see this very easily in our garden. We can see it also easily in our material world. And then if we look a little more closely, we'll see it's true in the inner world. And in particular, we need to look at ourself. And here the key meditation, the key first step in the meditation on coming to understand selflessness is to see how the self appears to us. How is it that our sense of self appears to exist? So this is the crucial first step, because without identifying clearly how the self appears to us, in other words, what it means to say that the self appears to be self-existent, we will not be able to refute what we haven't yet come to recognize, to see for ourselves. So therefore, the first step is to see how the self appears to us, trying to recognize that it appears to be independent, not influenced by anything at all. Appears to be self-existent or truly existent or inherently existent by way of its own nature. This is how it appears. And we're independent on understanding how the self appears, we then look for the self. If it exists independently or self-existently, it should be findable. So let me look for it. And the place we look is within our aggregates, either within our physical aggregate or our various mental aggregates, to see if we can find the self there, whether it's in the aggregate of our consciousness or feelings or discrimination. Where is the self that appears to exist independently? And every time we look, we will see we cannot find an unchanging self, a self that is not influenced by anything at all. And we'll see then that the self is empty of existing in this way. But rather, the self that does exist is a mere imputation. It's only an imputation by mind onto the basis that are these aggregates. That is all. But to come to this conclusion, is dependent on analysis. Without engaging in analysis and investigation, one cannot come to this conclusion. It's imperative that we make great effort then in analysis, first seeing how the self appears and then trying to find it. So this too is what we've covered in preceding weeks.
ane 동반이 또 비교 로건바 점기 동반이 또 손에다 녀모 방투 그래서네 나 동반이 또 바점기 녀모 방투 말해지래 아니 가르고 그래서네 동반이를 미비실라 소리 공부 그래 사시고래 되니게네 동반이를 미비실라 소리 공내 녀모 방투 그래서 나도 다 대체 해결에 나가지는 나버디잖아.
Then more recently, we've looked at the 6 perfections, and concluding last time with those of calm abiding and or concentration and wisdom. Here, a key point is that calm abiding alone, this powerful, stable mind, cannot eradicate the afflictions. All it can do is temporarily suppress them. Moreover, meditating on emptiness, even meditating on emptiness, this alone cannot eradicate the afflictions. What one needs is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness. This is required. The wisdom that realizes emptiness needs to be in union with calm abiding and meditative insight. This is a mind that has sufficient strength and wisdom to eliminate the afflictions. And that brings us now to the 35th verse. Single-pointed concentration alone is not recognized as having the power to cut the root of psychic existence. Yet, with wisdom separated from the path of calm abiding, the afflictions will not be overcome, no matter how much you analyze.
Samden chukomche and duskomba tobaina and digging you more part to grace di to be nuba yomar, nuba yubing ever yomar sheta. Asene, Tang you don't buy Nima tobaina, and then Jugi Chida, that Jishine strupche, some Zichi beating it, Selene, singing tobaina, the niggy shine diggy, and no more part to go mares. That diggy, the niggy shine the Kazio combine, call it to mares. And then diggy Karchigorasine. Koaleki yuji kores koaleki yu jizang jugi zejibi ge dame ba madoba je zejibi dinge jin tupshini ko je dobona digi jebudi kewa chimba kawalingesene kamgo malaya anu sudan sumele ya kewalen ro kores jizang korwiki gyucharo ko mado ane nyomo ba pangbe pangbe gyu pangtu mares tele nuba yo mares ko samjin zeji samla kowayi nyoma sawa chibi nuba mesede jizang 딩이진 제주도니 딩이진 토바 있나 that 야고를 땅아 딩이진 토송선 별로 돼요 말이죠. 다가지네 마음도 가르치 고르스는 남냠린 제디 코유 동안을 죄제 코유 동안을 탈야게 된다라 남냠린 제고로 봐. 그래서 제집이 신의 톱선에 되네 직선선 베게 삼다제 되어 있는 디기 코와를 줘도 말디 코와를 기위 규지고 그래지래. 코와를 기위 규지고 그래서 이게 담보 지가 담보래게다 제지 삼된 삼로 제집에 삼대 딩이 좀 공부 있나 안에 가르치고 그랬으네 다음에 봐마도 봐지 되니 가지 공부 있나야 디 코와를 줘두고 말해서 아주 가르치는 코와를 줘고 그러봐 지상 코와를 줘고 인자 디기 코와를 기위 규지고 그래지래.
looking at the beginning of the verse, single-pointed concentration alone is not recognized as having the power to cut the root of cyclic existence. This is an important point to be clear on, because one may well have a strong desire to have a powerful, stable mind that is not distracted, a mind that is peaceful and calm. However, even should one achieve calm abiding or single-pointed concentration, this alone does not have the power to eradicate the afflictions. It cannot do so. And therefore, it will not lead to liberation. And this is because calm abiding alone does not oppose the root of samsara. It does not oppose the ignorance of self-grasping at all. Therefore, should one achieve calm abiding, not only does one not destroy the root cause of cyclic existence, but one creates causes to remain bound in samsara. In particular, the mere achievement of calm abiding leads to the accumulation of causes for rebirth in the form and formless realms. Not the desire realm where we are now, but the form and formless realms. But these too are bound within samsara. So that means if one is striving to develop a calm abiding, thinking that this will bring peace, lasting peace and happiness, this is a grave error. Rather, one will be creating the causes to remain trapped in samsara. What we should have as a goal is a path that leads to freedom, a path beyond that leads to freedom from samsara. Whereas if one is striving merely or only for calm abiding, one will not achieve liberation.
Adinegi Shine Zam Topjo Komba Shine Zam Tobaina and the Ankoval Drutu Mare Karsene, Matu Kimja Karsene, Kuvetzawa Jubi Nuba Matonshis, Sinan Kuvetzawa Numomba Zawa Jubi Nuba Yomare Stile. Karshin Mevare Lamna, Chisan Numomba Zawa de Carson, Dasin Dinzin di Bangazo, Na Ranga, Kalamadu, Kalama Rangu when you Juba Zimba, the Dinzin de Kuvetzawa Chawore. Kuvetzawa Chawazan Dimeva, something she needs some gombatla, Delaya Kuvetzawa Nubi Nuba Yomares. Karsene, Kuvetzawa the Nuba de Nubi Nuba de Koala, Meva Spaya, Nuba Yena, Kargu Relamna, Kuvetzawa Dimbi Denzin di Karatingo to you, Kalayama Rangun to a Sindicores. Chisnade Rangun Majuba, Kala de Rangun Majuba de Tohores, Rangun to be Tomba de Tohor, Tony de Tohores. Chisna Tony Matoba in the Tony Matoba in the Shine to Shine di Tony to Mebaina, and the Shine di Gazo Combainea, and the Kuvetzawa Numo Batel de two Mares, Carson got Tony to go to your Maravasor.
The second line, single-pointed concentration alone is not recognized as having the power to cut the root of cyclic existence. So it's important this is clear. The reason that calm abiding alone cannot eliminate the root of samsara, in fact can't even harm it, is because it's not a contrary mind. Calm abiding is a powerful, stable mind that holds an object unwaveringly. Ignorance is a mind that misapprehends reality. So these are two different consciousnesses. They are not contrary. What is contrary to ignorance is wisdom. Calm abiding is a mind of single-pointed concentration. It's not a mind of wisdom. Wisdom is contrary to ignorance. To eliminate ignorance, wisdom is required. To eliminate the ignorance of self-grasping in particular, the particular wisdom that realizes emptiness or realizes selflessness, this is required because these two minds are contrary. Independence on the strength of the one, the other will weaken. Therefore, to eradicate the root cause of cyclic existence, its opposing mind, the wisdom realizing emptiness, is required. Calm abiding is not that mind. Calm abiding has power to hold an object stably. It doesn't have the power to eliminate ignorance because it is not contrary to ignorance.
코롱기 진당고수 가위 로치고 기호래. 지난 코로나 진당고수 가위 로치 마케바이나 콜라니 두고 말했어. 지난 진당고수 가위 로서 코 다신 덴진 마릭 바디 가서 나세디 간래 마도 랑문이 주바 진디거 와다. 단 델야 안에 진당고수 가서디 간래 마 랑문이 주바 랑을 중앙도 로라 나이도 간래 마 랑문이 주바 나와 나신지 자기네 매바 또 호라다 나와 나시 매바 강라이 뭐 랑문에 주바 자기네 매바스 또 별로 넣으시고 그래 되니게 통이 넣으시 개바이나 되니 공바이나 근데 가서 걸 걸이야 다시 말이 받을래 유모바 자와 근데 가서 나 라시 주바 집에들 누구래 마도데 신의 잠 제지베섬 제지버섬 주바 잠기다 되니 주투고 말해 제가 섬 제지버세 가제 동바니 마도바이나 섬 제지바 가제 공바이네 아주 코와를 주투고 말해 제가 디 코위 기위 규시월 코와를 주투고 말해 제가 디니 인자 신의 잠 동바니 마도나 신의 잠 토발라 안 할래 항상 가서 거요 말해 그래서 코위 동안을 주투고 말해서 제가 아주 냠내 제바데 코위 동안을 주고 봐서 지상 코에 동안을 좀 맞으면 내 신의 주바 잠이 디잠이 치라 항상 약간 미도하시고.
So here one is being very clearly advised that to fulfill the ambition that has given rise within one now, to attain freedom from samsara, to become a bodhisattva for the sake of others, do not strive for single-pointed concentration alone, because it alone will not lead to the attainment of liberation or bodhicitta. It's imperative that we recognize that in order to eliminate the root cause of samsara, we have to develop the mind that is completely contrary to it. The root cause of samsara is the ignorance of self-grasping, that grasps at the self as being inherently existent, that grasps at the self as existing in the way that it appears. To oppose that, one needs wisdom which understands reality, a wisdom that understands that the self does not exist in the way that it appears, a wisdom that understands how the self exists. It's only this wisdom that can cut the root of the afflicted minds and samsara, only the wisdom realizing emptiness, not single-pointed concentration. Single-pointed concentration is not contrary to ignorance. It is a powerful mind that can hold an object stably, but it cannot eradicate ignorance at all.
lo debu che ne da dikson san bege da dikya ya kom de na digo ma re jere da shini no drup cha ne shini top che ye che la an ka sa shini di dong ba ni to bu lu ngo ju tu ba che ho re dong ni to bu lu ngo dong ba ni la mi ne shini yu ngo ba ju tu ho re che sa dong ba ni la mi be shini yi ma de syo ho re che sa di ne za shini zam shini du ju ye de pe ma de ge chen bo re shini ju bu ho re shini drup ne da shini ju bu lo di 동반이 또 별로 용어 주소 받지 거래. 동반이를 미비 신의 용어 쓰고래스. 마다다 신의 탑선 디자인이 디선선 배 말로 마대 와시. 동반이 또 별로 용어 교투비 신의 쓰고래스. 디콤고래스. 진짜 되니 있나? 거녀모 봐. 싸와집이 니버여래스. 다 동반이 마도 봐네 신의디 될라 녀모 봐 싸와집이 니버여 말래스. 녀모 봐 싸와집이 니버 맨날 코와기 규칙을 마도 코와를 탈위 코와 뻥비 규칙을 말래스. 지선다 신의의 줍 되는 신의의 동반이를 미비기 신의의 뭐 규투바지 공바이나 지선디 신의 토바래 신의디 되는 신의디다 먼저 콜게 자와집이 녀모집이 녀모바 뻥비기 규셔거래스 네 되는자 같이 신의 토바지로 마디바지 신의디 고미야디 계침보래 되네 검네 신의디 동요도 별로 뭐 규투바지 거래서 된다 지승거다.
So I'm assuming now it's abundantly clear that to gain freedom, our longed for freedom, We have to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, and that calm abiding alone will not lead to freedom. And this is imperative to have crystal clear, because it's not that calm abiding should not be we should not strive. It's not that we should not strive to develop calm abiding. It's not that calm abiding is not important. But what one is being warned against here is to guard yourself from the confusion that one may come thinking, I've achieved calm abiding, I've achieved physical and mental bliss, and we abide in that bliss. Stop our spiritual progression there, thinking that we have achieved a state that we have not. All that we would have achieved then is mere calm abiding, or calm abiding alone. That is what we've been guarded against. With the attainment of calm abiding, we then need to utilize that mind, combining it with the wisdom realizing emptiness. This is where calm abiding has great power, great benefit. When we take the wisdom that realizes emptiness, and we hold that realization with single-pointed concentration, this becomes a cause for liberation. Wisdom realizing emptiness without calm abiding lacks the strength to eradicate the afflictions from their root. Calm abiding on its own doesn't even oppose the afflictions, merely suppresses them temporarily. So therefore, calm abiding is crucial, but it has to be applied to the wisdom realizing emptiness. These two together, the wisdom realizing emptiness with the stability of calm abiding, this has great power.
Nibade shine lamna devi sherabki jisam jeja nyomo midobe sera. Daya 동반이 또 배경을 저게 동이 또야 돼 빼면서 기치면 just 동반이 제바체체 안 동이 두비 셔를 시켜봐 이나 다 니거를 배서네 당 아주 동이 또 살성서 당에 동이 제바체 동이 또 봐 있는 아주 다 동이 또봐 제바체 동이 또 봐 있네 나한테 내가 동이 또 성서 로디에체 nendehaskaya 말이지래. 그래서 데니기 로디 되어 있나? 디 동반이 고명도 안에 가르쳐 버스는 공부이나 안에 신내 토요 말아. 신내 마토 완자 동반이 삼단을 남사 셈 남면게 원게 셈 제시도 네 마토 봐시. 셈디파 지게 바야스에서 최저하지. 동반이라 안에 곰디 약용 두 말이지래. 신내 남나데비 셰럽기세도 신내다. 그것은 유제집에 네베 띵이진 신내 매바인자 동반이라 삼다도 동반이 또 차고 제바 당봉한서 제바제 된되게 남자 제바제 동이 또 바래 이내다 동이 또 차완제 동이를 미비 신내 토 매바있나 마토바있나 다 동반이 삼다도 저 삼단 남사 한 야는 셈에 강아요 다야는 류를 강아 한 남의 레시 파야 예줘야다 되니기 도시네 그거래 제가 되네 인자 동반이 또 비기 로디 니버 첨부 차기 말해서 그러다
The verse then concludes, yet with wisdom separated from the path of calm abiding, the afflictions will not be overcome, no matter how much you analyze. In the first half of the verse, we are warned against striving to achieve calm abiding alone. We are warned against achieving calm abiding and thinking this is sufficient. Here, that same warning now is applied, but to the wisdom realizing emptiness, where we're here being advised to guard against meditating on emptiness alone, and when we have some realization of emptiness, feeling that this is now sufficient. Even some realization of emptiness alone is insufficient to eradicate the afflictions. So unlike calm abiding, the wisdom realizing emptiness does oppose the root cause of all our suffering, the ignorance of self-grasping. But wisdom realizing emptiness alone lacks sufficient stability and strength to be able to eradicate the ignorance of self-grasping. And this we know. We don't have calm abiding, so we know how distracted our mind is. And whenever we come to a point of conclusion in meditation, we see how quickly we lose it due to distraction. And similarly, Even those who have some realization of emptiness but lack calm abiding, their realization is quickly lost because the mind is so easily distracted. So therefore the strength of their realization of emptiness is greatly impeded due to the lack of calm abiding. Their spiritual development is thereby greatly impeded because of the lack of calm abiding.
Chudi ka chile dep chile lebe chudi nishu yoba chu manyu jigba inaya tram ne lebe nishu yo mare chire ka dep chile lebe khora nishu yo rese di na shi tongba ni to ba re de inaya tongba ni de yu sem zeji be dingin sin ma ge ba yanza sem le namya mong bo li go ro ji san sem namya ga tu go mare ka ma to ba za tongba ni sam ta ne namsa an ji ge nyuba chimbo de le tu go ma rasane semdi pa namyang mongbu chen shinje andu shene nyuba chimbo le tu go ma me ba za da garje worosen nyuba me ba yanza jizam je kya nyomo mido pes jenegi nyuba me na denegi nyuba me kengi tongba ni to belo de gaze gomba inaya nyomo pa tu ma des nyomo be do tu ma des nyomo me ba su tu ma des kasene ko nyuba chimbo ko nyuba go res jizam gomjang na de tongba ni gomba ne ko namyang nga lamsa ga ru ra jisa yuningbu zhe ji ni gong go wan za di me wan za na me ge de lam sa tong ba yi de lo di pa ye ru ro da ga ji de na me mang bu le de de ye ru ji za de ne za ko nu ba me ba ji me wan za de ne ge nu ba me hin di ane ga je gong ba yi na ya ane nyu mo ba tu ma re ji zam ji ge nyu mo mi do be se.
So again, in the first two lines, we are warned against striving only for calm abiding and being content with just that as a goal, even when achieved. And here, we're being warned similarly, but now against striving only to achieve the wisdom realizing emptiness. And when we have some realization of emptiness, feeling that that is sufficient. So here then we can liken a realization of emptiness that is not held by the strength of mind of calm abiding to the water in a wide lake. This water has no real strength. There's not much of a current. So this is likened to the wisdom realizing emptiness that is not conjoined with calm abiding. It lacks strength. And it lacks strength for a couple of reasons, one of which is how easily it is distracted. That even when in meditation one comes to realization of emptiness, it is so quickly lost. The distractions readily arise, and we lose that realization. Therefore, such a wisdom realizing emptiness has very little strength and therefore limited impact on our ignorance. And this is the meaning then of the final line in verse 35. The afflictions will not be overcome no matter how much you analyze. No matter how much you analyze, if that analytical mind of wisdom is not held or supported by calm abiding, it lacks the strength to have a powerful impact on ignorance.
Bene shinye juya di be ma se ke chen bores de sem se chi bi ding zen ji shinye ju bu gores ina de shinye ju che shinye to ba ina da shinye top sa ne dong ba ni lia sam ma da che de ba ne da nga shinye top so sa nga shinye ju che shinye top so sa be lo de che ane de ba ina ane ndi ge ni nyomo ba tu go nyomo ba le ni ma le nyomo ba ko ye zao nyomo ba di ba tu ma le ni ma le ma ni ba yan zang ane nga zu 냠는 지와서 코월에 탈야게 된다래. 지산 신의 잠 주바서 요 코월에 탈투고 민도. 그래서네 코에 자월 뉘기민도 아지래. 지산 신의 주바 잠기 뉘투고 말. 지산 되네서 돈이 또야 탑시고 그래서. 지산 신의 때 돈이 또 별로 뭐 주도 받고 그래지래. 나는 지금 제바 제한도 된진 집에 삼다 덴바 주머 제바치 다음에 덴바 맞추고 또 봐이네요. 다 당아지 오당의 동반이 또 선선 별로 대시에. 아니 되네. 아니 다 신의 마 주바 장 동반이 또 서 당한 신의 지게 주바다 디네 가요 말 삼삼되어 봐이나 지산디 동반이 또 말에 되디 로텔에 누버요 말서 남연게 원쇼 남산 남에 원도 송제 아니 로텔에 누버요 말 가서 공바이네 뇽몽바 다세 마리바 빵투고 말해서 지산데 다세 뇽몽바 빵마도나 코와를 저투고 말해서 코와를 저투고 말아왔어 지산 디네 인자 당한 동반이 또 봐이네 당한 동이 또 선다 동이 또 선다 현다 다 공고야 가이민도 동반이 공고에 삼되어 봐이네 아니 디고 말때 지서 동반이 또 사베네 신의 주보래 신의 주표 동반이를 미베 동반이 될 미베 신의 주제집에 딩에서 주보래스 데네 좀 마도 동반이 또 봐서미 아니 뇽몽 빠빠도 말해 데네 인자 다 가지래 신의 주바 잠기양 신의 주비에 개첨보래 돼 동반이 마도는 신의 주바 잠기 뇽몽 빠도 말해 제와 다야 동유도 배 마세 개첨보래 돼또 호래 배 개첨보래 돼 이내 동유도 봐 잠기 동이 또 선에 신이 마주바나 동반이를 미비신이 마주나 아니 뇽몽 빠두고 말했어. 제가 다나 동이 또 선을 로데 돼야요 말했어. 가젤에다 신이 줍네 동반이를 미비기 신이 주 신이 기도와 제거랬어. 신이디. 나 동반이 또 봐이나 동반이를 미비 신이 줍도와 제거랬어. 제가 동반이를 미비 신이 줍. 아니래 신이 줍더니 신이 딩안에 동반이 또 롱어 주도와 제거랬어. 딩이 지원 마도 아니 현 지레레레 삼 계요도 로데선 디선 삼배자반 디게 뇽몽 빠빠도 말 빠마도 코알 줘도 말했어. 소소에 코알 줘도 말 현에 코알 줘비게 줘지도 말했어. 우리가 당한도 잡아친 비추냐면 지도 현 코알 줘와 제반자.
To summarize the meaning of this verse, firstly, the attainment of calm abiding, single point of concentration, is greatly important. But be aware of the potential pitfall of striving for calm abiding alone, or, having achieved it, being satisfied with this great bliss and peace that one is experiencing. This is a grave danger, and we need to guard ourselves against this, because we will not, because calm abiding alone does not oppose ignorance. Calm abiding alone does not harm at all, does not weaken at all the ignorance of self-grasping, and in fact, it creates causes to remain bound in samsara, to take rebirth in the form and formless realms. So this is what we're being warned against, but nevertheless, calm abiding is greatly important. But it needs to be conjoined with wisdom. Then similarly, the verse went on to say, for those who are more inclined to engage in analytical meditation, reflecting on reality, when you gain, or as you gain realization of emptiness, do not be satisfied with that alone. Your realization of emptiness is greatly important, but it requires this great strength of being on a basis of calm abiding, of single-pointed concentration. Without being conjoined with calm abiding, it's overcome with ease by distraction. So therefore, to summarize, calm abiding is greatly important, but it requires wisdom. Likewise, wisdom is greatly important, but it requires calm abiding. These two together, they have the power to harm the ignorance that keeps us bound in samsara. So therefore, don't be satisfied with an attainment that, whilst crucial, is far beneath what we are capable of. Don't be satisfied with only achieving calm abiding. Don't be satisfied only with making great progress in understanding reality. We need both.
아데네 어디마 인루 푸다 주비 셰랍데 요메시니 달라 균네니 타들루 우메리베 촌년기 타제 미데 담제 직제비에서.
We come now to the 36th verse. Wisdom that decisively determines the actual state of existence, mounted upon the horse of unwavering calm abiding, and with the sharp wisdom of reasoning of the middle way, free of extremes, destroys all mental fabrications, grasping at such extremes.
인루 푸다 주베 셰랍티에스다 당한저 되지 당한저 동반이 또 베셔시고래 지상한 저기 때 가브릴라 가사 카시게 당보 신의 주 되네 신의 주제 아니 당보 신의 주 동반이 마도 가시 당보 신의 주 되네 신의 주 디젤에 동반이 또 하젠 신의 또 봐용 거와 나 가시 아직 신의 마도 당보네 전진주의 남자 삼다제 동반이라 제바지 동요 또 차제 신의 마도 가지 안디네 동반이 또 살아야지 신의 주바에 용식이로와 되니게 아네 되네 인자당 주의 가지 돈다라 칼소스네 가르도 베이네 다 인루 푸다 주베 셰랍티에서 인룩시드 당한 주 취기 네룩 탈도 간에 인바디 지게 무인이서 간에 인바디 지가 다신 제바 진진 저와주 삼김제망 삼다네 가삼직리아 안네 네 푸다 쳐봐세데 탈침비게 용의니 수디지다 와신 또베 셰랍티에서 오다 취 용의니 수디 가서 라나 나와 나신 최탐제 랑응원에 주바 나와 나신 자기네 매드겐 랑은의 주베 동바디스고와 지산 취 니루 푸트 취기 푸타라는 용의 니루디스고 니루디디레 데니 또베 셰랍티에서 데니 또베 셰랍티다 셰랍테 가르쳐 그랬으면 니 동이 또베 셰랍시고와 지산 일루 푸다 주베 주베 셰랍티에서 되다 동바이 또베 셰랍시고래
Looking at the first line, wisdom that decisively determines the actual state of existence. So this is referring to the wisdom realizing emptiness. So some practitioners, their disposition leads them to meditate extensively on reality and come to a realization of emptiness, and thereafter develop calm abiding. Other practitioners, depending on their disposition, they strive first to develop calm abiding and only thereafter develop the wisdom realizing emptiness. So there are these two directions that practitioners take, usually depending on their own predispositions. And furthermore, though, to understand this line in more detail, is that the wisdom that is being cultivated here is the wisdom realizing emptiness, and it's being cultivated to understand how phenomena actually exist in reality, which is that they do not exist in the way that they appear. No phenomenon exists in the way that it appears. Every phenomenon, whether it's an outer phenomenon or inner phenomenon, the way that it appears to our mind is not how it exists in reality. Here, the first line refers to a wisdom that realizes this, that decisively determines how phenomena exist in reality. In other words, the wisdom realizing emptiness.
다 되네게 계세요 제라 유동바딜라 동바니텔라 미베게 제주도 미베 딩에제 신이 두고 그래서 요메 신이 따라 균이니서 지데 제가 되네게 유동바니 당보 제바 동바니 또 주기 내로 라신 마루바 또 사실 되네 또 세요 제라 다 나주게 동바니 유동바니텔라 미체 샘제주도 내게 내베게 신이 두고 그래서 제가 되네게 신이 두바 있나 안 동반이라 미베 신이 두요도 안 가려워서네 요암에 봤어요 요메에서도 셈네 되네 동반이라 삼다가제 다차베네 냠바샤요도 남행게 원기 파 요마조와지 될래 제지도 네투고레스.
So whether the practitioner first develops calm abiding or first develops a wisdom realizing emptiness, both are required. So this has been clearly presented in the preceding verse. Then, when meditating on emptiness and coming to realize it, then need to hold that realization single-pointedly. And we see this now in the second line in verse 36. Mounted upon the horse of unwavering calm abiding. So here, we're referring to someone who has developed calm abiding and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And in the first line, They're meditating on reality, coming to see that phenomena do not exist in the way that they appear, that they are empty of existing in the way that they appear. And then, that's the first line, then in the second line, they hold that realization undistractedly through single-pointed concentration.
동의 도바이나 델리아 심 제지도 니베 심 다양도 남사 네마도바제 심 유주가 남이 유주가 최고 지선 신내면봐 지선 니네자 동의 도参与제라 아니 유동바기라 미제네 델라 제지도 니베 심디 딩에진데 야네 야도 검제네 안 델리아 제지니 바 신내 주고 그래 제래 다 니네게 동바기라 미제 제지도 니베 신내요 제지도 니베 딩에진 신내 주소 와이나 Shila Sunday Juba Rebes and Top Rebes and Shila Tombani Limbi Shila Sunday Top Rebes and Toyo Madino, Tombani Tobare, Tombani Limbi Shine Juba de Mado, Tombani Limbi Hardon said Toyo Made. Says that Hardon Madobaze, Tombani Tobare, Tombani Limbi Shine Jure in a Shila Sunday said Toyo Madison, Hardon Matobare. Jicarson, Tombani Limbi Zeju did the Zeju thing is Shine top service Jella, Shine that Hardon Juku and Yajuku.
So we've heard thus far that one needs both calm abiding and the wisdom realizing emptiness. Not either one is insufficient. Moreover, we've heard that these can be developed. Some practitioners first the one and then the other. That's okay. But then when they're both developed, one needs to utilize them both. First analyzing, realizing emptiness, and then holding that emptiness of calm abiding, so that one doesn't lose the realization due to the easy arisal of distraction. So that's what we've looked at thus far. However, those two together, the wisdom realizing emptiness and calm abiding, still is insufficient. One has not yet realized the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, holding emptiness. So one has a realization of emptiness, and one has calm abiding, and one is applying the two together. But that still is insufficient. There's a further mental development required, and that's a mind called meditative insight, or sometimes penetrative insight, or special insight. This we need to now train in. So we've developed calm abiding and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And there's a third mind that's required, meditative insight.
아니네 자당 담보 동반이 또 안에 제지부 삼담비기 네 마투바제 파유여야지 제시 주투만 다 델레 제시도 미 신년 주차웨나 다 동반이라 미베가제 제지도 삼다되변에 가제나 뒤투고래 이나 제지도 삼다 제지도 대비 링라 다 제지도 대비기 디응앙네 아니 양 동반이라야 셰럽기 바제바로 제와이나 제지네 바디 파예두고래야 예두고래 제지네 마두가 차르고래 다도 진행한 지 델리아 장도를 제고고래 제지도 네바 당보 제지도 네바들 바되 한시 셰럽기 삼다 양 바제 양 셰럽다 두 제장의 지도 어느 간섬지리야 유디 띵이진디 당아 저게 로디게 바 따여도 띵이진지다 셰럽기 로지리야 띵이진리고로 유 띵이진라 동반이나 제지도 내신병한데 셰럽디게 가지 직제바치도 당보 제바치도 삼다도 야 바유여줘야다 되는 강아 셈이야 강아래다 강아도 리고로 아니 간섬지리야도 제바치도 제바치 간섬지리야 셈이야 강아 균에 메디겐 리셈이야 강아 균에 메디겐 유 띵해진의 유동반 제주도 냠바라 샤신베 제 내신베 안에 준세이 미요하지 내신베 안에 셰럽디게 동반이라지 가제 제베네 제투비 제비기 강아 균님이 베기 한다 가서 신장에 대화해야지 다 지금 루스 신도 장화시 리고래 근데 이래요도다 실라송대서 토바래 가서네 셰럽디게야 동반이를 미제바 동반이를 두고래 네 신내디게 디코로로바 신내디게 띵이진디야 제시도 니고 권니가게 투모한다 니가 내가를 제주고 와 제주자 실라송대서 주바래
In terms of the sequence then, one can develop either first the wisdom realizing emptiness and then calm abiding, or the opposite, first calm abiding and the wisdom realizing emptiness. So that can be done in either order, but thereafter, always thereafter, one needs to develop meditative insight. And why is meditative insight required? So in order to realize emptiness, one has to investigate. This should be clear. And when we realize emptiness, so that that realization can be undistracted, we need to hold it with calm abiding. When one can do that, holding the realization with calm abiding, one can do so for as long as one likes, for many hours, holding that realization. And in this way, one's mind creates great familiarity with the realization because one is remaining with it undistractedly for as long as one wishes. So this is where the yogini is when she has realized emptiness and is holding it with calm abiding. However, as soon as she tries to analyze deeper, she is intentionally moving her mind and therefore the calm abiding is lost. And she cannot analyze more deeply whilst holding with single-pointed concentration. Then the concentration is lost. And this is where meditative insight is required. Meditative insight is a further development of calm abiding. Meditative insight is an analytical mind, it's an investigating mind. And so first, and the sequence here is definite. First, calm abiding is achieved. Later, meditative insight. In this process, when calm abiding has eventually been achieved, and then the meditator intentionally starts to analyze, initially they lose their calm abiding. But then through repeated familiarity and training, they keep realizing emptiness, holding with calm abiding, applying analysis, losing the calm abiding. Then again, realize emptiness, hold with calm abiding, continue their analysis. And as they gain greater dexterity here, mental dexterity, they start to not lose the calm abiding. And eventually, they can hold the object single-pointedly, the realization of emptiness, single-pointedly, and analyze. That is meditative insight with calm abiding. And the mark or the sign that the yogini has achieved the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on the object of emptiness is when she's holding the object of emptiness undistractedly with calm abiding and engaging in the analytical meditation that is the meditative insight, and the bliss of physical and mental pliancy arises. So it's this third step here, the bliss of physical and mental pliancy. When that arises, whilst investigating the object and holding it undistractedly, then that is the sign that the union of calm abiding and meditative insight has been attained on that subtle object of emptiness.
Now, Mishanda Kodurodi Sostati Pa Yo Sugyo Dena Koduro Shingo Mara, Shini Motoba the Chabaro. Takoron Tombo Leshavan, Kadu draw to go wache, draw to go na, that is Shini Juba the Chibarawa, Kodu draw to go. In a Digale Michi Yamana, then I got Jigoye against the Yawachi draw to go, Marganga chair that the Yawachi Tomato, the Yawa Tomato Chagorua. Says to get. Shine Juba in the Tomba Ni, some time do, Semdi, Yuche, Tata, Nemoto, Chiba Chago, Tiu Chibarwa. Chizango, Daddy Gala Midi Shuenche, 양에 양도 유 양은 zakab를 마사로 kab르니 미디야 야고 준 되투와 주고래 그래서 미디에 따디 주로데 미디야 야고 되마도 나 마리 주고와 안 되나 주고 말해 다 미디야 야고 되투네 따디 양지 강아 균에 매지 삼는 암라 매바지 딱 주투와 주고와 그래서 내니경은 지금 따디가 미디 쉐제 유제 양에 양도 장제 장도 안는 가슴 질려고 장도로 말 태선 따디바 유에디에 장도로 태 미디 따가도 되당디에 배 장도로 태제 되는 것다 유 젠들제도 갑리야 배 야구 유투야다 차거로와 거까지 강하균에 매바 그런 니가게 더 따다 유투야 차거로와 근데 디나시레 당은 저기 제가 동반이데 당보 신이 주도 동반이들 동바이나 동반이들 신이 주도가라 셈야원에 마투에 야네야도 네네 장고를 차그라 장네 셈 제지도 네티베 네투버 차차랑도 나야 네백 딩안에 셰럽기 파제바지도 야파 쳐주가 요주가네 차그로 두 지기 제번 강삼 지기야 신의 동반이는 신의 템보네 바다 달라 동반이디 또 셰럽지 제바지도 니가다 야고 차바이나다 요메 신의 따라 균년이 시도 요메베 신의 시대 따나신제 제지다 균겐 균세디가를 쉔겐디 다 셰랍트나 동반이 미베 셰랍티제 제자 디니가 야고 차와이나 아니 델레 실라송세시그레스 실라송 토바레스 거다
The verse makes reference to horse racing. We see in the second line, mounted upon the horse of unwavering calm abiding. So here, if we think of a process that a trainer will put the horse through, first, the horse needs to be broken in. And this then is likened to the achievement of calm abiding, where the horse needs to be broken in so that it can become disciplined. It can become pliable. It can be made to move in a particular direction. However, though, when the horse has been broken in, then we'll have a jockey mount on its back, and that the horse is likely to find particularly disturbing and will rebel against it. So this then is similar to when one achieves calm abiding, but is now trying to analyze, to investigate. Then the calm abiding is lost. Just like the horse that's recently been broken in, as soon as the jockey first mounts the horse, then the horse's discipline is lost and the horse then rebels. So this is likened then to the process to develop meditative insight. First, through great endeavor over a sustained period, one eventually achieves calm abiding. And through further endeavor, one is able to hold not just a coarse object of, say, a Buddha image, but a subtle object such as the realization of emptiness with calm abiding. So it's more difficult to hold with calm abiding a subtle object than a coarse object. But then, when one then starts to try and introduce analysis, the calm abiding on that subtle object is lost. And then one has to once again make great sustained perseverance so as to hold the subtle object of emptiness, not only with calm abiding, but with the analytical mind that is meditative insight. And there's this process here of disturbance, of one eventually attains a realization of emptiness, then eventually can hold the subtle object with calm abiding, then eventually one can hold it with calm abiding and meditative insight as well. When these two are in union, calm abiding and meditative insight, holding the realization of emptiness, this is when the yogini has become truly skilled and can make rapid progress. But to get to this point takes sustained perseverance in the meditations on emptiness, the cultivation of calm abiding, and the cultivation of the union of calm abiding and meditative insight.
타자 우미 리베 쳔nen기 타지 미게 탐지 지버지스 제가 타절 우미 리베 쳔nen기 타지 미게 탐지 지버지스데 제가 다 타자 우미 리베 쳔nen기세데 타자세데 유 너 다시게 타니나 저 우마세데 동바이데체 di Tongpanyi Tobegi Ribadi da Tongpanyi la Mibi Shila Songri Siwa, da Shila Songri di Ribadi da Chön Nyomba Nashire, Chön Nyesi Be Masita, Nikun Nuba Chembu, Yu Tongpanyi Yu di la Nuba Chembu, Shuk Chembu Be Chik Nuba Chembu Chadyo Re, Shila Songri ki Tongpanyi la Mibi Shila Songri Inza, da Nyomba Mo Panyi la ko Nuba Chembu Re, Chisan Chön Shal Masin Be Nobo Shu Jyoba Nashina, Nobo Shu Jyoba Na Zada Xingda Kar Cheba Lamsang Jedura,全入边南部面呢，接来个来吧，现在现在西老东半夜多，现在这边呢西老从这头买完呢，牛毛半夜高面来刚刚用的，现在在东半夜那边西老从这个头半夜的那个蓝日本的，全牛毛当然来是，全牛毛牛毛把全搞的结果是牛毛买把水了呗，你不清楚的是我的。
The verse continues in the third line. And with a sharp weapon of reasoning of the middle way, free of extremes. So reasoning, of course, is referring to analytical meditation, in particular on emptiness, in accordance with the middle way view. And the sharp weapon here is not only this wisdom, but is the wisdom that has the incomparable power of the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So it's not any old weapon, it's not merely the weapon of wisdom, but it's the sharp weapon of wisdom that is mounted on the mind, that is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. This wisdom that is in accordance with the middle way view has the strength and the precision to be able to eliminate all wrong understandings.
Rāshīng yūchūpa, tenpa chūpa cīmpe tensi sīgurwa. Chīsān dā ngā rā zū nyōng mōngpa tsāwa, kēyē kī nyōng mōngpa tsāwa, yōng dā duachā shēdāng, kōngchō lā sōpa nyōng mō chāsāng, yōng yā kī gyū tsō dī dā, tārzīng kī sā, chē tam chē rāshīng yī tārzīng sē dē, chē tam chē tenpa mā chūpa rē sē, tenpa chūpa rē sā, nā wā rāshīng kyū kāng lai mā dō rāng ngō nī rū yō mā rā dē, nā yō dō kāng lai mā rāng ngō nī chūpa, nā ngō nā wā rāshīng yō rē sā mē zīmbā dīl, tārzīng sē wā, tārzīng rē, dēnzī rē. 지산 디기 미바데 가르 미기워서네 강라마 랑원이 주바 여바 랑원이 주바디 진디고로 미바데 강라마 랑원이 주바디 차들와 미바디레 지산 디요레선 진디고 타진디게 지산데 데지다데 우메 타니나데 우메 리베 동바니를 미비 실라스로 로디기 디미바데 메바스고 지바치 메바치고 가서 디메바 통고를 메 지바치 지바치도 안에 가실레 디기 타진 미디에 삼지 거의 신유 진단 유리 매바 또한도 되니게 또 베게다 실라스는 띵이지 고면도 타진 코롱양 마 매바 수고래 빵고래 세래 빵고래스 지버제세디 코롱 미유디 지바지 미유디 진단 유리 매바 또 용도 공부에 실라 델미비 실라스는 고면도 타르지베 타진 따와 코롱 매바 빵고래 사번에 제바 마 빵고래제 매바 수고래제
And with the sharp weapon of reasoning of the middle way, free of extremes, destroys all mental fabrications, grasping at such extremes. Here, this sharp weapon, which is this union of meditative, calm abiding meditative insight, of reasoning, which is the wisdom realizing emptiness of the middle way in accordance with the middle way view, is able to destroy all mental fabrications, grasping at such extremes. Here we can understand extremes to mean to believing in that phenomena exist in the way that they appear. This is seen as an extreme because this is not how phenomena exist. So this belief that we have that what appears to our mind is correct, this is called an extreme because phenomena do not exist in the way they appear to our mind. None do. And it's only the wisdom realizing emptiness with a sufficient strength of calm abiding and the further analysis that is possible when that is in union with meditative insight, that the yogi can go down to the depths to start abandoning the afflictions together with their seeds. Remembering that here when we talk about the afflictions, it's in particular the root affliction, the ignorance of self-grasping or the ignorance of true grasping, the ignorance that believes that phenomena do exist in the way that they appear, that phenomena do exist truly, which is how they appear. But it's only this wisdom with sufficient strength that can eliminate this extreme.
Tongpa Nila Mibi Shila Sundri Gombiko Lodi, that Tongpa Nila Mibi Shila Sundri Lodi, Gomba Latene, and the Garchiora and Aranzuki, Nyomoba, Cordet Tamjig, Zawa, Tarzin Dazin Marib, Tinsin Maripadi, Pancreas, but Dizin Marib, Sabon, Basha that your pancreas, just not deep Pangores, just not Deniza, Denigi Shila Sundri, Ding is no Gomba Gomna, and Aranzuki, Digi, Gomba Latene. And doesn't my pasha that you are pane, ya, and it Dalushen, the job, and the Kawali is in Koran, so Drosa de God, the Jimmy Yukarina did Drosa Ligua, Dinashi, Denigi, Shilas thing is in Gombala Dene, and Tarzan doesn't marry but Panchine, and also the she Gombe, Miu Karas and San Yoko to which the Gombaro, San Yoko to Gurias.
The meaning here is, in order to fulfill our aspiration and attain Buddhahood, we need to cultivate a mind that is like a skilled horse, disciplined and responsive to the requirements or the demands of the jockey. So this is what we need to develop, how we need to develop our mind. And it's in particular, we need to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, that has the strength of the union of calm abiding together with meditative insight. It's only this wisdom that has the strength of meditative insight that can eliminate the root cause of samsara, the root cause of all our afflictions and suffering. This is what we need to develop. The wisdom realizing emptiness, mounted on the union of calm abiding and meditative insight.
Then, I don't know, indeed, that the Tsiji Nidigi, the Tsiji that the Tsiji Nidi Karasungora, and China, Shine Juvia de Kechembore, de Stonia Matona, and then Shine de la, and the Numo Bai Nubayo Malaysia. That Tonya Toya de Kechembore, de Tombanilmi Shine Madrubna, Tombanito Beludela, Numo Bai Nubayo Mares, then you got a Numo Bai Nuba Mervada, Mevares. And the Garichore Lamna, Gari and Nuba in Suluore Lamna, Dana, Tombani Toas and Tombani Lamibi, Shine Drup, Shine Dingane, and Tombani Lechibi, Sherap Kesobana, she lost what to say, Chagres. Digi and Yomo Pai, Nuba de Deleores, Digi Yomo Pantugres or that.
Then to summarize the meaning of these two verses, started out by saying that the achievement of calm abiding is important. But without emptiness, it cannot eliminate the afflicted minds because it doesn't oppose them. It's not contrary to them. Secondly, the wisdom realizing emptiness is greatly important. But the wisdom realizing emptiness alone cannot eliminate the afflicted minds because it lacks the strength of calm abiding. What then can eliminate the afflictions and free one from suffering is the wisdom realizing emptiness mounted on the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. This is what we need to develop.
That in it, Sujin Jube, Yang Be Sherapki, Dini Dobe, Luri Kaparze, Jesu Naju, Lemi Najung Yanyam, Dedarze, Tardutaya de Shinkan.
That brings us now to the 37th verse. Through this vast wisdom, probing with precision, enhance your intelligence, realizing emptiness. I, a yogi, have practiced in this manner. You who aspire for liberation should do likewise.
Delia, Tsujin Jube, Yang Be Sherapki, said, that Tsujin said, you Tombanilla, you Chui Namji, Niluku, more Rashingila, Tinjin, Joa, some that Bene, that Tsujin Ladu, that's Sanje Dang Kumbolula so big, you Tombanilla, Tinjin, Joa, some done a Chebachetang, Rimbarochik, Ma Lamigi, Ma Tinji, Rimbigi, Rimbachorwada, the Rimbasumba Nashi, Janga, Chebache, some 또 쥐바치비게 쥐바치는 유동방이 또 다 되는 유동방이 또 별로디야 안에 전주심지 심바 전주심 요구네 라지 심지 탐지 상요고 방 토비 치도 전주심지 심비게 동방이 또 별로디 공고 동방이 또 동방이를 미비 신의 주로와다 실라 손지기 띵이지 동방이를 미비 실라 손지기 띵이진디 안에 추진주베 양배 셰럽세도다 안에 전주심지 심비기 토네 안에 실라 동방이를 미비 실라 손지기 러디 공고에서 추진주베 양배 셰럽기시다.
Looking at the first line, through this vast wisdom probing with precision. This then refers to the wisdom realizing emptiness, that's investigating reality. That here, that to have come to this point, then the yogi would have been training for a long time precisely in accordance with the sequence and methods that their Lama has guided them in how to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, calm abiding, meditative insight, and then the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, and then the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on the subtle object of emptiness. So this training they would have been going under over an extensive period under the close guidance of their Lama, following the sequence of trainings and method precisely as is presented. And this all done with the motivation of bodhicitta, with the goal of enlightenment for the sake of others as the final objective.
코와를 줘서 타로 톱투고리 마도 안 사요고 톱투고 말했어. 디니 인자 전주sem바 남기서 양배 셰럽시데다 근데 로양바 닝도 첨보데 된디가 전주sem바 남기다 지탕바들이 추진주배 양배 셰럽기세도 제가 전주sem바 남기 가르간스 냠을 나왔으니 제가 심전 탐지기도 한다 안 삼나 갸첨보 아니 닝도 첨보 계제 심지 탐지 상요고 토비 체도 전주sem기 군년 나제 디네 기회신이 때 기회신이 안 동반이 내수치다 셰바나진 숨삼다 제바제 죄네 안에 동반이 도비 동반이를 비비 실라소를 공고레스 된다 직당보디 된다 디샤거래.
Implicitly, what this first line is referring to is bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas who are relying on their Lama's guidance to achieve enlightenment for the sake of others. Because in order to be a bodhisattva, a child of the Buddha, bodhicitta has to be cultivated. And it is essential in order to achieve enlightenment. It is indispensable. Because no matter for how long and how skillfully one meditates on emptiness with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, if bodhicitta isn't generated, enlightenment cannot be achieved. Liberation will be achieved, nirvana will be achieved. The afflictive minds together with their seeds will be completely eradicated and one will never suffer again. But the imprints of the afflictions will remain. The continuum will still have the imprints of the afflictions and therefore the perfected state of Buddhahood cannot be achieved. So implicitly this first line is referring to bodhisattvas, those who are striving for enlightenment for the sake of others.
양배 셰럽시데 양바다데 자침보라 거와 진짜 양배 셰럽시데 될래 양바세데래 니가라 동인도 베셔라야 삼다요래 아니 전주스 니가를 고고래 양배 셰라라도 리비 남랑 타이비고네 제바체제 제바 리비 남랑 마부고네 제바체 동방이라 미베 동방이 또안데 동방이 미시라 송제사다 근데 셈 야침보베 전sem제 탐지게 된다라야 상주고방 투비치도 셈 아니 전주스 미군네 라지 되니기 아니 동방이 또 베셔라 공바시라 송제 공바시데 제가 동방이 미베시라 송제 데 실라 손을 그런 그런 리비 남라 야침보슈 야침보고네 제바체제 동방이 또안데 동방이 미시라 송제 되니 동방이 또 베시라 송제 대야 굴롱 셈제 탐지라 미베 셈 야침보 장주스미 군네 라데 아니 공백이 동방이 또 베시라 송제 공백 장주스 만데 냠는 제레 디레스 월다 되니 난 거래 제레
What indicates that this first line is referring to bodhisattvas is the word vast. So here with vast and wisdom, it shows the union of method and wisdom. It shows that the wisdom probing with precision is wisdom that is using a vast number of reasonings in its analysis of reality. And vast then refers to the vast activities of bodhisattvas, the bodhisattvas with their vast capacity that embraces all sentient beings equally with impartiality. They are meditating on reality, which express it slightly differently. In order to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of others, with this motivation of bodhicitta, with this motivation that is vast in that it encompasses all sentient beings throughout the realms of samsara, the bodhisattva is meditating on reality, realizing emptiness for the sake of others, realizing emptiness in order to be ever more skilled in benefiting others.
Rikpe namrang tayi byo kwenye tongyo tobyo lo di ane semchen tam chigi dondala sangyo kofang tobyo chirdo jansho simyo kune langje dine lo di yaane yaado gomche ne lo diyo sido dine gomche di lo di ya nipa cher tanga tengor lo diyo kyabar se sido dine tongpa yido rikpe namrang tayi byo kwenye tongyo tobyo shira di semchen chimbo jansho simyo kune langje ane yaane yaado gomba yage mo kwane kodo pego tengor res gompe do gom 당고 레스 지산이 뭐배 공부에 당제 산주고 토바지고 그래서 너도 개발해서 뭐 공부도 당와서 그래 제 시대 수지고 그래서 제주선 받는 미도 냠는 당고 그래서 그래.
And then the next line, enhance your intelligence realizing emptiness. So these two together, through the vast wisdom probing with precision, enhance your intelligence realizing emptiness. So here this is referring to a practitioner with a vast motivation of bodhicitta, this motivation that's encompassing all beings, with the greatest of goals in mind, Buddhahood for their sake, with such a vast motivation, repeatedly over a sustained period, they're persevering in these meditations, in the cultivation of the wisdom realizing emptiness, the cultivation of the realization of calm abiding, the realization of meditative insight, and then the union of calm abiding, meditative insight, realizing emptiness, all within this vast motivation of bodhicitta for the sake of others. They persevere over an extensive period, making unbelievable progress for the sake of others. That's then the meaning of the second line.
ane simchen tamchigi donda sanyo goba toyo chido ane tanga zhugidadi sherage parchen nyamlen chedu kabla kanis nango re labna ta janyu sembadagi jeba mokbo cheche chizang jine chibu gomba tsamgi ane korwe dunga nyomo pa pangtugu midu chizang tongi jine marduwa tongi chibu gomba tsamgi na nyomo pangtugu midu chizang dinegidu janyu sembadagi nyeba jeba cheche kenche na dine zang tongpa nila mibi jine drup 나 신의 디가네 동반이네 비벨 하동 줍 되네 신의 실라 손을 톱 실라 손을 톱네 되네 동반이도 고묘도 대한 리바 남라 지기 동반이 제바지도 갈래 리비 남라 야침부 주 삼다네 제바제 된 동반이 실라 손을 대한 샘제 탐 지기도 산요고바 투비 치도 아니 실라 손을 공고레스 되네도 신의 검제 현재시 셈바남기 dus nyamne chiwar nyema janju se ba na ge dine gi nyamne ji da sanyo ko ma thoban cha sa dine gi nyamne ji da sanyo ko ma thobare da de janju se ba nyamne na shin ba di gi ne khono ju dus chin nyamne nang go re se de da janju se ba nyamne na ta dine se su go ba.
In these three verses, Rinpoche is saying to us, we should train like he did and all the bodhisattvas do, in that generating bodhicitta, this aspiration to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all beings, train in the six perfections. So here, with this vast ambition of a bodhisattva, with the greatest of goals in the distance, encompassing all beings, the bodhisattva engages in profound analysis, using a wide number of reasonings, always looking in ever more detail, more profundity, in order to completely transform their mind into the state of perfection. And with such a motivation, a bodhisattva will not be deceived and settle for minor attainments. A bodhisattva will not be satisfied with only a realization of emptiness. A bodhisattva will not be satisfied with only an attainment of calm abiding. A bodhisattva will see that a realization of emptiness is crucial, but it has to be conjoined with calm abiding. And when it is conjoined with calm abiding, the bodhisattva will know that that alone is not enough. It must also be combined with meditative insight. And the bodhisattva thereby will not be satisfied with any minor attainment, will not be deceived by the bliss of physical and mental pliancy that comes with calm abiding, but will ensure they develop the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness, because this is what's required in order for them to fulfill this heartfelt ambition of becoming a Buddha for the sake of others, leading others to realms freed of suffering and pain. This is the motivation through which they engage in all the 6 perfections.
kowe dunga tata le dreche simje tamjig dondale shanliye pamba geche mo drubu wo dine druba dyoba sanjo ko phon tobra dyoba togo re sambe sambol samlo yoba ina ane andina shinje ane kazi simje chike shine drubya ta an tongbanyi jeba tongbanyi le bibe shine drub ane shila sondro drub dine ane simje tamjig dono ane sanjo ko phon tobi chirdu se chaje simyu kune la chaje simyi simbi thone lusiane ya no komku le sa ando sigare dene komba ina dene sanjo ko phon top tu res ando sunkorwa.
I, yogi, have practiced in this manner. You, who aspire for liberation, should do likewise. Rinpoche is again explicitly saying, I have trained like this. I have trained in the same way that all the bodhisattvas in the world are training. And I have trained in the same way that all the Buddhas have trained. So you, my students, you who long for freedom from cyclic existence, you who long for Buddhahood so that you can lead all beings to achieve their own enlightenment, train like I have, train like all the bodhisattvas are, train like all the Buddhas have, train like us, develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, calm abiding, meditative insight, and then strive to ensure that you have the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness. Because in this way, you'll fulfill your heartfelt aspirations. You'll fulfill the aspirations of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. You will become a Bodhisattva too. So train in this way with great effort.
Dadi jerim chengan zo lapse nawa na shin chengan zo kar ko gore sene tang zo dangbo sam daya di dangbo dang zo ngang zo la da shine dongba yin to ya ma le shine ge ya ma wa dini yin za dang zo dangbo kar ko gore sene da ko yu dunga di ke sam da je ko wa lia ne da janju semba na gi dangbo du nyam ne je ba wa dina shin ji na ngang zo na dina je wo se ro da dangbo kowe dunga kamsumna kando kyeba kowe dunga rashi resha jiza da kowe dunga de la tagudu wa che semjen tham ji kowe dunga de la tagudu sambege samna da je anga semjen liya semjen tham je dunga yin na chi tyesha semjen je dewa de dengu gudu semjen tham je dunga da dra gudu samje anga je semjen je liya jamba da zewa samda jamba ko ma je ge dus chen nyamlen je de de samdang ko wa jamba da zewa samda dine 인자다 잠바다 제와 섬나이도 나가서 갈리고 와서 진짜 심지어 담지 동화다 자고 오래 진짜 동화다 자야지 Dunga de ganes dragore, dunga ganes yungore, sanega something niba de sometime. Chisa dunga yudi garasene, le latine nyomon badin ligdua, sisa nyomon bad de sha, kondro, ngaya, deso latine ngarazuki, kudu lengazo kondro kiede, rama kiwa, shenma kiwa, gangateya, desha kiede, rama kiwa, shenma kiwa, gangateya. Chisa ngaya kiede dine, chisa dine sa che dili ine ngarazo dunga mangbo, chisa raji nigal dunga nyomon badin ligdu. 다 디길에 다 녀모바 코로 숙셔지잖아 심지어 소죄자다 샤는 뇌죄자다 지도 디올레스다 코알 동안요 차사 디 녀모바든 얘기도 와스비 좀 예바 땅으로다 다 손바들다 녀모바데 자와데 갈리게스 다시 마릭바들 얘기도 와스 차사 나세베 다시 마릭바디 디도디 다 녀모바 차상에 자와 디레샤 섬제바 제고레스 차사 디 섬제바디 자 제바지 다시 마릭바세야 디기 제바지는 다 다시 말이봐도 유가는 난거래 가는 진거래서네 말이봐서야 돼 하세야 돼 강화야 마도봐 나랑군이 두버 진디거래스 제단디 진바데 다시 말이봐 제단디 진마나 신직다 예나 매나 제바체고래스 제바체도 안 간삼질레 제바지 오다디 나 제바체도 갑라 기위 신yen다 아는 아주 베체 라야다 로야다 퇴섬 곰섬 진 퇴바제 되니기 제바지나 가는 거지 제바진도 제바지 소소 냠녀도는 제바지여도 간점 질리하다 최담지야 나와 나시 랑원의 두가 자오기 민도 선비게 동이 또에게 로지기 그래서 니곰 나 되네 기연데 동반이도 상선 나데 지소 맞은 바체 나 동바기는 될미 비신이 두고 그래서 신의 두고 되네 신의 두체 동바기는 신의 실라송데 두도 바체 그래서 dine drumne semje odadi chesa daze mare zimbade mindu chesa zimba nashi mindu daze mare badida pontuya dus kasa tonye tombaye to sawada di kombaina daze mare bad pontu dus chesa pontu eda daze mare badingi pangje semje tamjegi kobi dungayo daze mare bangi pangbayi pangbar chigi di jange semje tamjido sanyo ko toba jiwa yin sembegeda nan jashi semje gorese disi gorata danda 자시세마 샘제 탐지기 녀모 빠야디 빵투야디 가슨 다 동이 또요디 또 녀모 빵투고 하고 두고와 진짜 빵투고도 대자 샘제 탐지기 녀모 받니 빵와지기 샘제 탐지 동알레 저니 자와지기 대장에 샘제 탐지기도는 산요고 토바지기 자시셈 예디 삼다 아니 디던달라다 되니기 자시셈 제세외체라 다 동반요고미하다 신소파신 님면제의 차상 다지야디 도스치네 냠난지야디 레서올데 당어적인 대행기디 달 지게 쇼로가니 숨디게다 랍제디 차고르와다.
The advice that we should take away from these verses that we've been looking at is that we first recognize where we are, and that is we don't have a realization of emptiness nor calm abiding. Nevertheless, we've had presented to us the example, the unmistaken example of how all the bodhisattvas train. We need to follow that example. And if we follow it and follow it in the correct and complete manner, it is certain we will achieve the self-same results. The first step then is to reflect on the sufferings of samsara. And here we need to reflect in detail on the sufferings throughout cyclic existence. We need to do this so as to give rise to this clear understanding that samsara is a prison and there's not even a moment of peace to be found. And thereby make our mind more expansive, not so dominated by overcoming mere worldly problems and achieving the most temporary of happinesses. And as we develop this understanding, whilst we are developing it, also apply it to the situation of others. So that we need to come to understand suffering in relation to our own experience. And whilst we are gaining understanding of suffering in relation to our own experience, remind ourselves that others are suffering in this way too. And in this way, we also are developing love and compassion at the same time as developing an understanding of the suffering nature of cyclic existence. And this then will lead us into the second step of the meditation, which is how to attain liberation. How can I gain freedom from this unbearable prison of samsara? And here now we reflect on the causes. Contaminated karma accumulated by our own afflicted minds. And here we look at how it is the afflictions that cause us to suffer. It's the afflictions that are our true enemy. It's the afflictions and the afflictions alone that cause us pain. And they cause us pain in our own direct experience and in our expression of the afflictions to others. So they bring misery to the lives of others as well. And then again we relate this to others, seeing that they suffer in the same way due to the afflictions. And the third step of the meditation, how to be freed of the afflictions. This is to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. And here the first step was to understand how all objects appear to our mind. Every object of thought appears as if it is self-existent. It's independent, not influenced by things other than itself. This is how objects appear. They're truly existent, self-existent, inherently existent by way of its own defining characteristics. So that's the first step. In the third part of the meditation, the first step to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness is to see how objects appear and then to engage in the process of analysis. And the process of analysis, to engage in that well, we need to rely on the skillful guidance of our teacher, on the wisdom of our teacher. And we supplement this with reading texts to supplement the teachings we receive. Then, in our meditation, as we start to gain some realization that phenomena do not exist in the way that they appear, we then remind ourselves that this realization of emptiness that we have is crucial. But in order to have the strength to eradicate ignorance completely, it has to be conjoined with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So this is the fourth step, the recognition of the need for calm abiding and meditative insight. And then fifthly, the recollection that the purpose of this entire meditation is to become a Buddha for the sake of others. To become a Buddha for the sake of others. Hence, right at the outset, when we are meditating on the sufferings of samsara, we are doing so also, or primarily, in terms of our own experience, but then relating it to others too. And then in the second step on the causes, the causes are the afflictions which harm us and harm others, and others are suffering in the same way too. And the third step, cultivating wisdom realizing emptiness. So here we are looking at how objects appear to us and that they don't exist in that way at all. And we relate it to others, seeing that they too are deceived in the same way. It is the same ignorance that's keeping them bound, and they too have the need for wisdom. And here we remind ourselves that I have to develop not only the wisdom realizing emptiness, but also the union of calm abiding meditative insight. And all sentient beings need this too. I, now in the fifth step, will strive to become a Buddha, so that I can become the most skilled of guides and lead others to recognize sufferings from samsara, the first step, the causes of suffering, the afflicted minds, the second step, lead others to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, the third step, and to conjoin that wisdom in the fourth step with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. I will do this for others. That's the fifth step. And lastly, the sixth is one can reflect on the six perfections, the actual practices of bodhisattvas.
심자듬지 둥아디네디네도 제사 심절에 대화면도 시비게 삼다야디 다 심전들음질에 잠바다 니지기야라 당보 코위 둥아 귀엔 삼당고래서 삼다 디네게 스튜엔디 통여도 다 심전담질이야 아니 코위 둥아딜레 자나 셈비게 아니 니지기야다 심자담제다 대화다 된다 셈비 잠바기야 되리고래 다 디네게 심전담제 둥아다 자나 셈비 니지 다 잠바니디 Gorimska, Gabriela, Kashela, Niel Ninja Samta, then Jambachela Kiangore, Kashela, Konyam Sosogi, Komyan Chetan Quarter, Sakashi Champion Samta, Kashi and Ninja Kiawa, Yungor, Dinilla, Nachis, Gabri, Kansa Sosara, Yamle Chetan, Yungore. Tassimja Dunga Jago, Sembi Ninja Ki, and the Galigors in that Dunga, Jaw, Dunga, Gudi, Carre, Sembicheva Chedu, Dunga, Julia Cheva Chedu, and Denzin le chebachi gore. Denzin le chebachi de dene chebachi di gablada chebachi ne di kensam de la 동방이 또야기 고갑디라고 또 gore. 지산 동방이 또도 dene 동방이 또 살도 지난 녀몽바께 그 코라게 유자와되는 노주 임바 하고데 뒷방 두고요 바데 세고 하고 두고라 가서 동방이 또야데. 지산 디 동방이 또도 dene 셈랴베 직 다디 띵이 제네 제 투사랭이 제 투구도 선배겠다 배 직semля 뽑어를 실례시네 되네 셈제 탐지 동화된 게 세기 선배게 셈제 탐지 코르 동화라 타지야 타바 사지살야 꾸기 선배 셈슈디 레투고래제但고 가르스는 메니기 강한 세계 탑람디 세버 하고서 봐 하고도 아니 셈슈디 신들이 용거래 제가 셈슈디 용바자 네 산이고만 그래서 동화 세긴 라면도 다 소소나 삼다 당해서야라 나랑기 녀모바 차산 빵 균 차산 빵지 연된 토보에 차산 마토바는 현래 판바 주투민의 디인장 소소랑랑기 유 녀모바 차산 빵야다 균 차산 세 아니 연된 토보에기 토보에 차산 토바 제고도 제산이고만 토고도 니 톱낭이 현래야 판바게시 뭐 주투바래 선비게 니네게 아니 자주 셈게야디 아니 데니스 용고래 제래 지상간주의 당보 다 잠바다 니제 당보 안에 코르에 동아 삼다 데네 잠바다 니제게 데네기 여데다 데네기 제라 동방이 또 별로디게 두고 리고래 디제라 다 저심게 봐 용고래 제다 망체와데 데네레스 가제다 셈제 가제 좀디 원게 원부 두보 좀다 셈잠바로다 동방이 셈잠비게 좀다 내려간다 니네 있나 양 고좀디 왕기 다 텐주번에 집에 동방이 도마토가 용거로 와 이내 코로나 주기 가르스네 최담제 치료도는 마주바 동도에 잠시 셈게 되는 잠시 셈게 세외 제라 된 양제바제 텐주배 도바나진 동이 도야 돼 용거로 해지래 그래서 가질래 망체와기 냠내제 망체와기 인지게 되네 잠시 셈마게 빨아들라 고유 등의 균요 모발에 제바지도 동방이 도도 그래 또 그래지 다 가시 셈제 공부도 가시라 아니 네가 돈이 마도 가지 제주 셈제네 돈이 또 봐 연구를 해서 가시 연구를 해서
So I want to just now in conclusion talk a little bit more about this meditation because people do approach it in slightly differing ways, and this is because of our varying dispositions and inclinations. So I'll discuss this a little bit, and you see what fits best for you now, and this is the way that one approaches. But the indispensable first step for all practitioners is to reflect on the sufferings of samsara. This is indispensable. This is the first step for the ultimate or the final attainment of either liberation from samsara or Buddhahood. So it is the indispensable first step to reflect on the sufferings of samsara. How one does so, there is some divergence. Some focus primarily and perhaps even exclusively on their own experience, and thereby give rise to the wish to be freed themselves. At that point, they turn their attention to others. Other practitioners, independent on their own particular disposition, focus primarily on what others are experiencing in samsara, giving rise to a strong wish, strong love and compassion for others, for their suffering. However, the second type of practitioner, they still do have to reflect on the sufferings of their own experience so as to give rise to the wish to be freed themselves. It's not enough just to long for others. One also is amongst suffering beings and must long for freedom oneself. So what varies between the two is not whether they are focusing on their own suffering experiences, but how soon they bring into their meditation the suffering experiences of others, and thereby how soon they generate love and compassion for others. So there's not a right or wrong, a better or worse here. It's one's own disposition will take you in one of these two directions, and you go with the direction that works better for you. Some will focus primarily on themselves and a little bit on others. Others will focus primarily on others, but also themselves. The goal, though, of the meditation is the same: to give rise to renunciation for the sufferings of samsara. Thereafter, one will reflect on the causes of that. The afflicted minds, together with their seeds, with ignorance of self-grasping at its root. And here again, the same, so that there is the indispensable second step. Where the variety comes in is in this reflection, how much one relies only on one's own experience, of the experience of the afflictions in one's continuum and the harm one brings to others, or how much one reflects on the experiences of others suffering under the control of the afflictions. So there is freedom of expression depending on one's own personality, how much one focuses on one's own experiences and how much on that of others. There's variety, but what is indispensable is that the second step is looking at the causes of suffering, the ignorance of self-grasping, which leads to all the afflictions. Then one meditates on the third step, which is the antidote, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And here, so the sequence here is set. The only variety we've seen is how much focus there is on one's own experience as opposed to others. So there is a variety depending on one's personality. Then one comes to the third step, and here one has to reflect on how phenomena appear to you, yourself, your own consciousness. So here you're looking at how the self appears to you, how various consciousnesses appear to you, how external objects appear to your mind, etc. So here one is looking at oneself, one's own experience. And here, as one makes progress in this third step in developing the wisdom realizing emptiness, here great strength of mind arises, because one has already gained a realization of the sufferings of samsara, the first step, as well as the second step, its causes. Now we're seeing that freedom is possible. Freedom is possible. And this leads to a great strength of mind, because we know that we definitely can emerge from the suffering realms of samsara and attain liberation. We are certain about it. And now we have unshakable focus, unshakable intent on achieving what is actually important in our lives. And here, independence, so this is the third step, and independence on how much focus we've put on thus far on the experiences of others will come about how readily the attainment of bodhicitta arises within us. Because here we have gained certainty in the possibility of liberation for ourselves. And now we can apply this to others, that they need liberation as much as we do. But they are lost in confusion. All these kind mother sentient beings, they need guidance. They need guidance in how to achieve freedom. I know that I can do it, so I must do it now for their sake. And here one generates bodhicitta, determined to become a Buddha for the sake of others. So that's the meditation. So you see where there is, that the steps are quite set, but within those steps, how much focus one puts on others will vary, and thereby whether one generates bodhicitta before the wisdom realizing emptiness or the wisdom realizing emptiness before bodhicitta, there is variety. Some practitioners, because of their personalities, will develop bodhicitta first. Others will first develop the wisdom realizing emptiness and then bodhicitta. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no better, there's no worse. You work with your own predisposition, your own personality. Where we can say with some certainty that practitioners will definitely realize bodhicitta first, and thereafter the wisdom realizing emptiness, is those, in terms of Buddhist tenets, philosophical views, those who hold a lower tenet, say, of the Chittamatrin view. They cannot gain an actual realization of emptiness because there's a fault in their philosophy, a fault in their understanding of reality. So therefore, they have to realize bodhicitta first because they cannot realize emptiness first because there's an error in their view. But for those who have the correct view, the view of the Prasangika, they may well realize emptiness first. And with the power of that realization, knowing that freedom is possible for themselves and for others, they will then develop bodhicitta, the determination to attain Buddhahood for the sake of others. So they may well realize emptiness first and then bodhicitta, but also other Prasangika view holders may still, because of their personality, realize bodhicitta first and then emptiness. So hopefully then it's clear that the sequence of the meditation is definite, but within that, whether one places more or less emphasis on the condition of others, and thereby realizes emptiness or bodhicitta first or not, is up to one's own personality. There isn't a correct or wrong way in that regard. So we'll finish there and continue this afternoon. Thank you very much.